Hello everybody, thank you for joining us today. Before I get started, I'd just like to thank all three of my co-authors and a big thank you to the Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries, Republic of South Africa, for sharing some really cool data with us. As well as song, humpback whales also produce a variety of non-song calls. Now, unlike song, these are produced by both males and females, as well as calves. Currently within the literature, there have been 28 different call types that have been described, and fundamental frequency of these calls can range from 31 Hz to 3.2 kHz, and duration can range from 0.5 to 15 seconds. So we're looking at a very diverse acoustic repertoire. So in the northern hemisphere, some calls have been found to be associated with feeding. So a series of cries have been found to be associated with lunge feeding in Alaska, and what are termed burst pulses have been associated with bottom feeding. Now, humpback whales have also been found to produce what are called megap clicks, and these are similar to odontocyte clicks, so it's thought that they may play a role in prey manipulation. The breeding stock B population of humpback whales who breed off the coast of Gabon and Angola have recently been suspending their southerly migration to feed in the nutrient-rich Benguela, but off the coast of South Africa they've been seen to form what are termed supergroups, which are groups of 20 to more than 200 individuals within approximately 5 body lengths apart. Now, as the primary behavior within these groups is feeding, this provides us with a unique opportunity to study the acoustic behavior of actively feeding southern hemisphere humpback whales, which was previously limited to the Southern Ocean. So, whilst examining call production of humpback whales from acoustic data collected from 3 tagged individuals to investigate call sequences, we observed a relationship between call production and surfacing that warranted further study, and led us to the following research question. Is there a temporal association between calling and surfacing behavior? The acoustic data for this study were collected from St. Helena's Bay in November 2018 by the DEFF, who deployed 3D accelerometer and video acoustic recording tags on 3 different individuals on 3 different days. So, for this study, we only analyzed acoustic data, during which calls from both tagged and non-tagged individuals were selected and categorized into call categories, and surfacing events were identified in the tagged individual were identified by the presence of 2 large strips of noise with a strip of silence between the 2, and surfacing events in non-tagged individuals in the surrounding area were identified by selecting blows which were both visually and audibly identifiable. Now, to reduce the chance of incorrect assignment of calls to the tagged and non-tagged individuals, we calculated the signal-to-noise ratio and then plotted this. So as you can see from the graph, the bimodal distribution of the signal-to-noise ratio values indicates a cutoff point of 10 decibels. So any calls that were 10 decibels and above were attributed to be produced by the tagged individual. So to test for a temporal association between call production and surfacing, we conducted a series of randomization tests with 5,000 permutations to compare the following 2 processes. So we compared the mean time of call production prior to surfacing with the mean time of call production since the surfacing event. And we conducted this test in both the tagged individuals and non-tagged individuals in the surrounding area. And then what the test does is compares the mean difference between both of the 2 processes via a Welsh 2-sample t-test. So overall, we analysed a total of 16 hours of acoustic data, in which we identified a total of 4,628 calls and 2,272 surfacing events. Now, when you break that down to the individual level, the first tagged individual, there was 20 minutes of data, 28 surfacing events, and the individual had a call production rate of 1.15 calls per minute. The second tag had a lot more data for 11 hours 16 minutes, in which the individual conducted 579 surfacing events and a call production rate of 1.9 calls per minute. And then the third tag, there was 4 hours and 45 minutes of data, 268 surfacing events, and a call production rate of 0.36 calls per minute. We first conducted the randomization test in all 3 tagged individuals, which gave us a total of 875 surfacing events to be analyzed. Now first, here we have the actual frequency distribution of the 2 processes. Time to a surfacing event, which is represented by the blue bars, and time since a surfacing event, which is represented by the red bars. And you can see the 2 dotted lines on the graph. These represent the mean time of each process. And as you can see, the frequency of calls produced just before surfacing is much greater than those produced just after. Now, in the second graph, we have the simulated frequency distribution of the 2 processes, for which you can see the mean difference between the 2 processes to be less, thus indicating that the mean difference in timing of calling before and after surfacing is actually greater than what you would expect by chance. And the results of the t-test support this, as they showed that there is a significant difference between the timing of call production prior to surfacing in comparison to the timing of call production since surfacing, indicating that individuals are more likely to call just prior to surfacing, thus showing that there is a significant temporal association between the timing of call production and the time of surfacing events in tagged individuals. So then we thought it would be interesting to see what's going on at the individual level. But when testing at the individual level, only one tag was significant. And this was the tag for which we had the most data and the highest call production rates, and also the highest number of surfacing events. So again, we have the actual frequency distribution of timing to and since surfacing event, which you can see there is that the mean timing of call production prior to surfacing is much less than that of call production since a surfacing event. And when you look at the simulated frequency distribution, you can see that the the mean difference is much smaller than the actual mean difference. And the results of the 2-sample, 2-sided t-test show that this difference is significant. So in terms of the association between call production and surfacing, we are only seeing it in one individual for the tagged individuals. Now, when conducting the randomization test in non-tagged individuals within the surrounding area, we analyzed 1,397 surfacing events. And again, here we have the actual frequency distribution of the time of call production to and since a surfacing event. And you can see that the mean time of calling to a surfacing event is less than that of the mean time of calling since a surfacing event. And when you look at the simulated frequency distribution of time time of call to and since a surfacing event, the mean difference is smaller than we are seeing in the actual frequency distribution. And interestingly enough, this mean difference in the timing of call production to and since a surfacing event was found to be significant, indicating that there is a significant temporal relationship between the timing of call production and the timing of surfacing in non-tagged individuals in the surrounding area. We then investigated which call types are being produced before surfacing. So here we have counts for the number of times each call type is seen before surfacing in the tagged individuals. And as you can see from the bar on the far right, the whoop call type is the most predominant call being produced before surfacing, shortly followed by the grumble whoop. And interestingly enough, the whoop call type was also the most predominant call type to be produced before surfacing in the non-tagged individuals. So just for as many of you won't be familiar with the non-song calls of humpback whales, here is an example of the whoop call type. looking at the timing of the production of whoops before surfacing events, we're seeing in both the tagged and non-tagged individuals that whoops are being produced within 1 second prior to a surfacing event. And given this and the association found between call production and surfacing, it appears that whoops are actually potentially associated with surfacing in these supergroups of humpback whales. So why may individuals be producing calls just prior to surfacing? So it could be that they're producing a feeding call, as the whoop call type is thought to be important for communication amongst feeding northern hemisphere humpback whales, as high production rates of this call type have been found on the northern hemisphere feeding grounds. Or it might be that individuals are producing calls just prior to surfacing to aid synchronicity in surfacing between individuals in these large groups. Humpback whales have been shown to be able to produce mixed directional signals that could potentially convey motivational information of the signaler to the receiver. And last but definitely not least, it may well just be a contact call to maintain social cohesion between conspecifics. So the whoop call type is generally thought to be a contact call with broad utility, playing a key role in intergroup communication. It may well be that individuals are producing these call types just prior to surfacing to maintain social cohesion with other conspecifics. But overall, we can't really make a full conclusion of why we're seeing this interesting relationship. I guess future research may well shed further light onto why we're seeing this slightly strange temporal association between surfacing and calling. And thank you very much for listening, and I look forward to hearing your questions.